Greetings. This is a video assignment for Mr. Eads' History 1301 class for Module 1 called The Tudors. NCTC students, if you have not downloaded the review sheets attached to this video assignment, I encourage you to go do so now before proceeding further. It is located on Canvas. For everyone else who may be watching this video, enjoy. This is for Module 1, A New World, and the topic is the Tudors. In the 15th century, England was a second-rate power beset with disunity. In the 1400s, English nobles fought the War of the Roses, which was a struggle for the English throne between the House of Lancaster and the House of York. Henry Tudor, the Earl of Richmond, and a member of the House of Lancaster, defeated King Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. A side note here, Richard's remains at the Battle of Bosworth Field would go missing, and in 2012 be found buried underneath a Leicester parking lot. By marrying Elizabeth of the House of York, Elizabeth was Richard III's niece. By marrying her in 1486, Henry ended the civil war between the English nobles and reunited the English kingdom, and in doing so created the Tudor family. And also in doing this, Henry becomes King Henry VII and creates the House of Tudor. Henry Elizabeth's first son, whose name was Arthur, died before he could become king, and many thought at the time that he would be just like the fabled King Arthur. Their second son, who was named Henry, reluctantly married Arthur's betrothed, Catherine of Aragon. And in 1509, Henry becomes King Henry VIII. Now, King Henry VIII's problems all began with his inability to produce a male heir to the throne. Henry VIII needs a male heir to succeed him, to keep the English kingdom intact after his death, as Henry knew that multiple claims to the throne had brought about the War of the Roses, and he only could expect the same if he did not produce an heir. Yet the only child of Henry and Catherine's survived childhood was a daughter, Mary. By 1527, Henry VIII had grown frustrated with Catherine and her supposed inability to produce a male heir, and at the same time, Henry's eyes gets caught by another lady in the court, Anne Boleyn. Henry VIII says, "There's the solution to my problem. I get rid of Catherine and I marry Anne." However, there's only one problem here. Henry VIII is a loyal and faithful Roman Catholic. So Henry VIII contacts Pope Clement VI and makes the request to annul his marriage to Catherine so that he can marry Anne. There's two problems here. First problem is that Henry can't annul his marriage to Catherine. It clearly has been consummated. Mary's the example. Also, the Pope Clement VI is scared of the Holy Roman Emperor of Germany, who also happens to be Catherine's brother. So Pope Clement VI tells Henry VIII, "No, I will not annul your marriage." In response to this, Henry VIII just then declares himself, quote, "the supreme head of the Church of England." And he has his marriage to Catherine of Aragon annulled by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer. Cranmer's motives for doing this are rather simple. He wants to reform the Church of England. This decision by Henry VIII to annul his marriage to Catherine launches the English Reformation against the Roman Catholic Church. It is also the beginning of the Anglican Church, which is the Episcopal Church in the United States. The English Reformation also creates religious disunity in the kingdom and invites potential intervention by foreign powers, who would hope to reclaim England for the Pope. Throughout his lifetime, Henry VIII remains on this quest to find a male heir. Before he finally passes on, he will marry 6 times and produce 3 legitimate children who survive infancy: Mary from Catherine, Elizabeth from Anne Boleyn, and finally a male, Edward. Edward's mother was Jane Seymour, who was Henry VIII's 3rd wife. Edward was a sickly child who came to the throne at the age of 10 after Henry VIII's death. I should also add, Jane Seymour died in childbirth, producing Edward. Edward was controlled by regents throughout his short reign of 1514 to 1553. Edward only lived to be 16. These regents were Protestants, and they prosecuted Roman Catholics. After Edward VI died, his sister Mary became queen. Mary was Henry VIII's oldest daughter. Her mother was Catherine of Aragon. Her maternal grandparents were Ferdinand and Isabella. Catherine was Ferdinand and Isabella's youngest daughter. Just to say the least, Mary was Roman Catholic. She was raised to be Roman Catholic, and she persecuted members of the Anglican Church for retaliations of Edward's persecutions of Roman Catholics. This will make Mary an unpopular queen. Mary was also a very unhappy queen. She married King Philip II of Spain, but this marriage was a complete disaster, as Philip only married her for her crown. Philip wasn't interested in her personally. In fact, Philip II fled England almost immediately after the ceremony to deal with other matters in the Spanish Empire. Mary also proved to be unable to have children. There was a couple of times in her short reign that she proclaimed that she was pregnant, but nothing came of it. Then in 1558, Mary caught pneumonia and died. Thus, her stepsister, Elizabeth, becomes queen. Now, Elizabeth I is Henry VIII's youngest daughter. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's 2nd wife. Elizabeth ends Mary's religious persecutions against Anglicans, and she proclaims Anglicanism as the official church of England. However, Elizabeth was a Roman Catholic in private. Elizabeth is considered the Virgin Queen, as Elizabeth never married or had legitimate children, and did not recognize any illegitimate children she may have produced. In fact, the movie Anonymous will go as far as to say that the author of Shakespeare's plays was one of Elizabeth's illegitimate children, and that she didn't even recognize her own illegitimate children in the face. However, the myth I debunk here is that even though Elizabeth is called the Virgin Queen, she was sexually active. It is under Elizabeth's rule that the great plays of Shakespeare are written. And also, England moves beyond its second-class status in the world, and that England begins to look at colonizing the New World. Because Elizabeth has it in for Philip in Spain. Under Elizabeth's orders, English sailors harass Spanish ships carrying gold from the New World. Elizabeth helps fund Dutch rebels in the Spanish Netherlands. Sea dogs John Hawkins and Sir Francis Drake indulge in piracy and smuggling. In 1588, King Philip II has had enough. He decides to retaliate by gathering all of his ships and pointing them at England. Philip has lots of reasons for this. He's tired of the intimidation, piracy, the smuggling. Philip also decides that, hey, I'm actually the King of England. I married Mary once. So Philip declares that he's going to make England Roman Catholic again. And the Pope says, go for it. Philip attempts to invade England. But Philip will be thwarted. Sir Francis Drake will block the Spanish Armada before it has a chance to fight. When Spanish ships gather in the Spanish Netherlands, Drake will move his fleet between the Armada and Spain. And then Mother Nature intervenes, and storms just batter the Spanish Armada. The now defeated Armada is forced to sail around England through the North Sea and by Ireland during the winter of 1588, which happens to be a very harsh winter in England, and the remains of the Spanish Armada limp into Spanish ports in the spring of 1589. The significance of the Spanish defeat of the Spanish Armada is this. It marks the beginning of English supremacy on the seas that will last until 1945. At the same time, it marks the end of Spanish dominance in the New World. By the late 19th century, Spain can only claim 4 or 5 colonies left in the New World, places like Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam. And with the defeat of the Spanish Armada, the English is now free to start settling in North America. Thank you for watching this video on the Tudors, and may the Force be with you.